This is Enderman Slayer, one of the most difficult Slayer bosses in all of Hypixel Skyblock. Why is that? Let me show you real quick. For starters, it has 210 million health, does 21,000 damage per second, has hit shields, and also beacons that one-tap you, as well as these heads that do a crap ton of damage. However, you still want to do Enderman Slayer because of the rewards it gives, but it's too expensive, with setups costing over 500 million coins. But today, that problem will be solved because I'm going to be showing you guys how to defeat this tier 4 Enderman boss with a setup worth under 250 million coins. There's timestamps in the description if you guys want to skip around, but now let's hop into the video. Alright, so if we're looking at a budget guide here, obviously the most important thing is going to be gear, so right here in my inventory is everything we're going to need for this boss. Let's start off with the armor here, as it is the most important thing, so you want to be using full Final Destination armor. I'm using about 25,000 kills on each of these pieces, and that will do you just fine for this boss. I have these two pieces at 25k, but my chestplate's at 70 while my helmet is at 19k, so these kind of like balanced each other out, and I'm basically using full 25k Final Destination here. All of these pieces should be recommed, hot potato booked, and reforged to ancient, and you are also going to want wisdom 5 on these bottom 3 pieces right here. On the helmet, you're going to want refrigerate. Even though it is a little bit expensive, it's definitely going to help out with your survivability, and it's not exactly possible without it. Now, the reasoning as for why do we need these enchantments, wisdom's pretty self-explanatory. It gives us mana, which is pretty useful during the fight. Refrigerate, if we look at the description right here, at level 5, which is what we're going to use, it gives you 25% of your mana used as defense for 10 seconds up to 1,000 defense, and that defense is going to be crucial if we need to defeat that boss. As you'll see later, we end up using quite a bit of mana from something like this, all of that good stuff, and we also have a couple more enchants on here that are going to help with that mana and defense kind of combo, and you'll see that in a second. Growth 5, Prot 5 will do perfectly fine for all of these pieces right here, but you are going to want Mana Vampire 5 on at least 3 of these pieces right here, and it'll help a lot with your survivability. And also, do get Rejuvenate on all of the pieces, as well as Transylvanian on the helmet. Also, this entire set of Final Destination right here has an E-Man 4 requirement, so if you don't have it, just grind out tier 1s and come back to the tier 4 later. I did end up buying the helmet straight off the auction house. That was about 46 million coins. For the other 3 pieces, I bought them and then I upgraded them separately. So the chest plate and the leggings were 23.5 million coins each. The boots were 19 million coins, and I upgraded them. So obtaining this armor set and upgrading it cost me 144.3 million coins. So just to recap, you need to use full Final Destination armor with at least 25,000 kills on it, wisdom for the bottom 3 pieces, and refrigerate 5 for the top piece. You want to have Mana Vampire on at least 3 pieces, as well as rejuvenate on everything, a recom, ancient, and hot potato books on all of it, and you do not need growth 6 or prot 6. Next, moving on to the weapon here, and here's where my guide starts to diverge from other guides. They're all gonna say for the tier 4 you gotta use an Atom Split, but in reality you can actually get by with the Vorpal very easily. You're gonna want it to be recommed, fabled, hot potato booked. If you can get the Jasper slot unlocked, even better. There are a lot of tier 6 enchantments on the sword right here, but all of them are the cheap ones, so I would strongly recommend getting all of them, but I'll point out a few that are really important. Firstly, Ender Slayer 6 and Sharpness 6, these are essential to dealing more damage to the boss. You also want to have Siphon 4, as it'll help a ton with your healing, and the boss isn't really possible without it. Fire Aspect 3, Vampirism 6, and Thunderlord 6 are also really good, as they will help you build up your damage over time. And you want to make sure you have Execute 5, not Prosecute 5 on your katana, and that will help you get through the latter half of the boss much easier, which is where the boss gets harder overall, so you want to get through it quickly. The intel slot isn't needed, as you'll probably have more than enough mana anyway, and you should also have Ultimate Wise 5 just to conserve on that mana. So that's the main stuff, but I have some utility items here that you're definitely going to be needing during the boss. Firstly, a Soul Whip with Mana Steel 3. This is going to be used during the laser phase, and you can regen some mana with it. I find it to be really useful, and you might be able to get away without it, but I'd definitely recommend it. Also have Lethality 6 on it, it'll just help out a lot. No need for a recom, and you can reforge it to Heroic. Next, I have a Florid Zombie Sword right here, reforged to Heroic with Ultimate Wise 5 on it. Only costs about 4 million coins, and I definitely recommend having it just to panic heal, and it might save you on a couple of bosses. In other words, the boss is killing me, what will I ever do? Boom. I'm fine. But that's basically what panic healing is, and it can save you sometimes in the middle of a boss. I also have a Reaper Scythe here. It should be reforged to heroic, but I'm just bad at the game and I don't have it reforged. You should also have ultimate wise 5 on it, and you should also have tank zombie souls on it from M3. These are going to be the best for survivability. Wither specters will not work. They're really annoying to work with, so I would just recommend having this. You should also have an aspect of the void or an aspect of the end. Either one works. It helps you move around just like this, but also, as you'll see later, it has a damage buff too. Next up, we have the Wand of Atonement. You are definitely going to be needing this during the boss. I use it basically every 4 seconds when I'm doing it in the boss. This is going to be the difference between life and death for this boss, so you are definitely going to be needing this Wand of Atonement here. Lastly, we have the Ragnarok Axe here. This is definitely an optional item, and you can do the boss pretty easily without it, but if you want slightly quicker boss times, I'd recommend using the Ragnarok Axe to get more strength. Okay, lastly, for real this time, I have a Wither Cloak sword right here with ultimate wise 5. Again, completely optional. I just like to have it in my inventory right here in case I'm too far from a beacon and I accidentally didn't get it or something. I can just Wither Cloak and it'll save me from the beacon. As far as the pet goes, you're going to want to use a Enderman pet right here. I have a mythic rarity right now, but an epic or higher will do you just fine since the only 2 perks that really matter are the first 2 ones. You're going to want it to be at least level 85 and holding a dwarf turtle shellmet, since knockback in this boss is basically going to be the death of you. The higher the level the better, but get at least level 85 and do what you can with your budget. As far as the equipment goes, you're going to want to be using a rift necklace right here. This thing is OP for the health and defense it gives. You also want a dragon fade cloak right here, since it gives you a lot of health and defense and strength, and all the stats are multiplied by 3 times when on the end, so that's really OP there. And then these 2 pieces of molten right here just give you a lot of strength, health, and defense, which helps against the boss. Notice how I don't have any vitality on any of these pieces right here. This mana pool 5 isn't even needed, so you don't even need a Kudra tier 3 completion just to do this boss. You don't even need the vitality equipment at all. Last couple of things before we get into the boss, I want to talk about skills first of all. Most of these skills are pretty much not important. Even though I do have max skills somewhere, they're not going to make much of a difference on the boss. The main skill that does make a difference is combat here. Now I am combat 60, which gives me a lot more damage, but I do make up for it in a different place, as you'll see later. But I would recommend having at least combat 40 or 45 before you attempt this boss. It's also a budget setup, so a higher combat level will make you much better at this. Lastly, I want to talk about magical power here. So I am running this setup with 524 magical power. I just took a bunch of talismans out of my bag. I would recommend running at least 700 because this setup is kind of budget. And I'm also combat 60, which is why I'm nerfing myself on the talismans. If you can, use Hurtful because it gives you a lot of bonus attack speed, which is useful, and it's also really good for damage. But if you can't, use Bloody. Also set all of your tunings to bonus attack speed, and if you have any enrichments, also set them to bonus attack speed. There are a couple of talismans that you should have, like the Book of Progression, and the Vampire Dentist Relic will also help a lot. And if you are still struggling, you can use the Soul Flow Pile, Pocket Espresso Machine, and the Handy Blood Chalice, as they all give benefits to help out with the boss. So that's everything you're going to need gear-wise, but now let's hop into a boss and I can show you how it's done. So the first thing you're going to want to do as soon as the boss spawns is spawn your tank zombies in from your Reaper Scythe. This will help you get through the hits phase. As you can see right here, sometimes the boss completely ignores the tank zombies and targets you instead, so if that happens, you want to distance yourself from the boss and make sure the tank zombies are between you and the boss. As soon as the hits phase is over, you want to immediately use your Wand of Atonement for healing, and also use the ability on your sword and start damaging the boss. You'll want to rinse and repeat the cycle every 4 seconds, and use that Wand of Atonement and the Soul Cry ability on the Vorpal, just so you can get the healing and damage in, and then continue to damage the boss. Around 170 million health, the boss will begin its first laser phase. All you have to do is dodge these lasers, but make sure they don't hit you, as they do 25% of your health in damage, and they also reduce your healing by a ton. Simply use the Wand of Atonement and the sword ability again after the hits phase and continue to damage the boss. As you can see from the footage, the name of the game for this boss is to stay away from it and make sure it doesn't hit you. Majority of the damage from the boss comes from when it hits you, and the other damage that it does doesn't really do anything and it's not really relevant, so if you can stay away from the boss, you'll be fine. And the second hits phase is just a repeat of the first one. Remember to keep cycling your healing and damage abilities. Now, at around 130 million health, the boss is going to start throwing these little beacons around called gang glyphs. All you have to do is go stand next to them and they will immediately disappear, but if you don't do that, they will insta-kill you after 5 seconds. At 100 million health, the boss is going to do another laser phase, but it's identical to the first one. However, this time it may throw beacons inside the phase, so just be wary. After the hits phase, do the same thing you've been doing, cycle your Wand of Atonement and your Soul Cry ability, and continue to carve through the boss's health. At 70 million health, we're gonna have our final hits phase, again identical to the first two, just spawn your tank zombies. However, also at 70 million health, the boss is gonna start spawning these little enderman heads called nukubai fixations, and they do a bunch of damage, so we have to deal with them, which we do by just looking at them. It's important to note that you can get rid of these heads by looking at them even through the boss, so if you can try to position yourself in a way that you're continuing to hit the boss and looking at the head at the same time, that will help a lot. Just keep cycling your Wand of Atonement and your Soul Cry ability while being mindful of the beacons and the heads, and at 30 million health, the boss will enter its final laser phase. It's the same thing as the first two, just dodge the lasers and be mindful of the beacons and the heads. After this phase, use all of your abilities, be ready to panic heal, and finish that boss. And that should be everything you need to know for this boss, but here's a couple of quick tips to make your bosses even better. Firstly, the boss does most of its damage in the first and last phases of the boss, so do make sure to be careful during those phases. The last phase is because of the heads and everything, and the first phase is because you haven't used much mana yet, so the Refrigerate and the Mana Vampire haven't kicked in yet. Secondly, if you want to use your Rag Axe, use it in the laser phase, that's the best place to use it. Speaking of the laser phase, do make sure that you're not touching those lasers, especially in the latter half of the boss, because with everything that's going on in the boss, that stop in healing is gonna end up killing you and you're gonna fail the boss. Long story short, keep things simple and don't touch the lasers. Oh yeah, and one final thing. When you're doing the boss, always make sure you're crouched so you're using your final destination ability. Without that, the armor set is basically useless. But that's just about gonna wrap it up for this video. If you guys made it to here in the video, thank you so much. I would really appreciate it if you guys dropped a like and a sub. I'm in a race with Flame Game God to 10,000 subscribers, and if we win that, I'll give you guys 150 million coins in my Discord. Speaking of which, join that for giveaways, carries, and more. The link is going to be in the description. And also, if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye!